The story begins with a demon-like creature bearing a sword on its back, perched atop a building, eyeing its next prey. From its vantage point, the creature spots a young boy and leaps towards him. The boy looks up in shock, unable to believe what is coming towards him. As the monstrous being closes in, it relentlessly pursues the boy. With every step, the boy's fear intensifies, driving him to run for his life. However, exhaustion starts to take its toll, and the boy can feel his legs growing weak. In a seemingly hopeless moment, he finds himself face to face with the menacing monster, anticipating his imminent demise. We go back to the beginning of the story, 3 days ago. We see our protagonist, who has been working in an office for the past 3 years. One day, he leaves work relatively early, feeling relieved because he will have some free time the next day. He gets into his car and drives home. On the way, he contemplates what he will do once he arrives. His plan is to read novels online. In a moment on the road, he stops the car because he feels that he hit something. He gets out of the car and notices that he has just run over an animal that looks very much like a dog. As he examines it closely, he realizes that it is too big to be a dog. Suddenly, the animal starts breathing. It's not dead. Our protagonist apologizes to him, even though he knows it won't solve anything. Our protagonist approaches the animal and strokes its head. The animal suddenly opens an eye, and our protagonist starts hearing a voice in his head. He wondered who was speaking to him. The voice inside his head continued to talk, and he couldn't help but imagine it as an interface from a video game. Confusion filled his mind as he tried to make sense of it all. Cautiously, he looked around, only to realize that the body of the animal he had encountered earlier was nowhere to be found. A wave of bewilderment washed over him, and his gaze shifted downwards, landing on a small, peculiar stone. It was no ordinary rock. There was something about it that made him think of it as some kind of valuable item within the game. Curiosity getting the better of him, he bent down, picked up the enigmatic stone, and made his way back to his car. Fatigue weighed heavily upon him, and he convinced himself that everything that had transpired was just a figment of his tired imagination, a product of his long and arduous workday. Little did he know that none of it was a dream or a hallucination. The next morning, our protagonist awakens, feeling as though he has overslept. He decides it's time to leave his room and venture out into the rest of the house. As he steps into the living room, he suddenly becomes aware of an issue with the electric switches. Although initially unconcerned, he carries on and proceeds to have a quick snack while making his way towards the television. Yet, upon settling in front of the screen, he realizes with surprise that there is no signal. Feeling a bit puzzled, he instinctively reaches for their phone to investigate the situation. To his dismay, the phone is completely drained of battery. Determined to pass the time, he remembers the stack of novels he had been eagerly waiting to read online. However, with the room still engulfed in darkness, he decides to open the curtains, hoping to let in some natural light. As he pulls the curtains aside, he gazes outside and are left utterly astounded by what he sees. The streets were in ruins, with enormous roots sprouting from the ground, wreaking havoc on the pavements and cars. The sight left him astonished, prompting him to examine the landscape in more detail. The entire city lay in ruins, cars engulfed in flames, chaos reigning supreme. Amongst the mayhem, he caught sight of a group of orcs. At first, he questioned whether they were real or merely cosplayers, but their lifelike appearance convinced him otherwise. As he focused his gaze, one of the orcs held a blood-stained knife in one hand and the severed head of a person in the other. Witnessing this gruesome scene caused a wave of nausea to wash over him. Seeking some form of distraction, he reached for the television remote and contemplated tuning into the news. However, his hopes were dashed as he remembered the lack of a signal and his drained phone battery. Our protagonist looks out the window again, still unable to comprehend what is happening. A thought starts to form in the Kudo's mind that perhaps this is the new reality, an existence in a world teeming with monsters. Memories of the previous day's encounter with the hit dog flood back into the protagonist's mind. He ponders upon the possibility that the voice he heard after striking the dog was a forewarning of the impending doom that awaited him. Out of the blue, a strange set of words appeared in his mind, status open. As he muttered those words to himself, a mystifying menu materialized right in front of him. It was as if he had entered into a video game world. He couldn't help but wonder how these stats had suddenly become a part of his reality. Little did he know that it all traced back to the incident with the dog he accidentally hit with his car. Intrigued by this newfound discovery of his own stats, he began cautiously exploring the menu. Among the many options that presented themselves, one in particular caught his eye: the choice to select a profession. With a sense of curiosity and excitement, he carefully scrolled through the list, contemplating the possibilities that lay before him. Ultimately, he decided to become a spy. It required 10 points of work experience, coincidentally equal to the number of experience points he already possessed. As he selects the spy job, he notices that his skill points and job points start to increase, and he feels like he has acquired new skills. One skill that stands out is resilience, which is at a remarkably high level. He contemplates that this might be because of his past experience working as a corporate office slave. After perusing through the menu, he comprehends that in this new world he finds himself in, his skills are going to play a significant role. It dawns on him that these acquired abilities will have a crucial impact on his journey ahead. As our protagonist started to test his new skills, he quickly realized that he now possessed physical abilities far beyond what he had before. It was a revelation to experience the sensation of effortlessly jumping to great heights without feeling weighed down. His muscles seemed to respond with newfound strength, granting him an agility he had never known. Describing these incredible skills ultimately had a profound effect on our protagonist. It filled him with a renewed sense of confidence, allowing him to cast aside some of the lingering fear he had towards the impending encounter with the orcs. Now equipped with these extraordinary physical abilities, he felt less intimidated by the daunting task that lay ahead. Intrigued by his newfound ability to summon objects, he curiously attempts to invoke a pen, and to his surprise, it works. The sensation of wielding power over the tangible world around him fills him with excitement, and he realizes that his reality now resembles a video game more than ever before. Eager to explore further, he decides to delve into the inventory of items at his disposal. As he conjures up various objects, a voice suddenly resonates in his mind, asking if he would like to view his inventory. Piquing his curiosity, he eagerly accepts the offer and examines the list of items at his disposal. To his astonishment, the inventory is brimming with a vast array of tools, materials, and supplies. Realizing that he won't have to worry about running out of resources for quite some time, a sense of reassurance washes over him. With his inventory well stocked, he decides it's time to venture out of his house in search of sustenance. Despite being deep within an unfamiliar world, he is resolute in his belief that by staying vigilant and avoiding any unnecessary confrontations with the menacing orcs lurking around, he can safely make his way back home. As the protagonist stepped out of his apartment, a chilling silence engulfed the hallways. It sent a shiver down his spine, awakening his senses of danger and hostility. Something was amiss. Determined to unravel the mystery, he decided to knock on one of his neighbor's doors, hoping to find someone amidst the silence. The first door he knocked on opened to emptiness. No one emerged to greet him. Disheartened, he assumed that everyone had fled, leaving his apartments abandoned. His unease grew, prompting Kim to descend the stairs. However, an intriguing detail caught his attention. His footsteps seemed to make no sound. The hidden power of light steps, one of his unique skills, allowed them to move silently. A faint sound emanating from one of the doors grabbed his attention. As he cautiously approached, his sense of hostility heightened. An invisible danger lurked on the other side. With bated breath, he pushed open the door, only to be confronted by a vicious goblin wielding a wickedly sharp knife. Panic surged through him, but they quickly regained composure, relying on their fear-resistance skill to ward off the overwhelming urge to flee. Both of them stood facing each other, poised for the battle. Our protagonist was filled with conviction and excitement to confront the goblin. However, in a sudden twist, he decides to run away. Confused, the goblin chases after him, unaware that it was all part of our protagonist's strategy. As the goblin approached closer, our protagonist drops a washing machine on him, crushing the goblin beneath its weight. With the washing machine, he successfully eliminates the goblin, earning experience points and leveling up in the process. After killing the goblin, its body vanished, transforming into a small stone, just like the incident with the dog earlier. This indicated that whenever a monster dies, it is turned into a fallen item. After defeating the goblin, he decides to check his menu to inspect his stats. He notices a significant increase in experience points and decides to use them to level up. As he levels up, he realizes that the skills obtained from his chosen profession combine with the skills he already possesses. One of the skills that levels up is covert action, allowing him to blend in better, although he can't help but feel slightly smaller when using it. Continuing down another corridor, he unexpectedly encounters 4 goblins. One of them starts advancing toward him, causing him to question whether he should flee or confront them. In order to become accustomed to this new world and level up more quickly, he decides to take on the challenge and face them head-on. As the first goblin approached, Kazuto swiftly maneuvered behind a nearby wall, concealing himself. With his heart pounding in his chest, he tightly gripped his dagger, ready to strike when the opportune moment presented itself. As the goblin drew closer, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows, Kazuto seized the opportunity and launched his blade, piercing the creature's heart. It collapsed, lifeless on the ground. The intensity of the kill affected Kazuto on a deep level. His stress resistance, initially at level 1, spiked to level 2. Although he had taken a life, an act that burdened his conscience, he felt a slight release of guilt and anxiety. For in this world of monsters in peril, survival often required difficult choices. With renewed determination, Kazuto focused on the remaining 3 goblins. As he observed their approach, he noticed they were all converging from the same direction. Thinking quickly, a plan formed in his mind. He conjured a refrigerator using his magical abilities, an unexpected weapon in this grim setting. With all his strength, he pushed the heavy appliance towards the incoming goblins, trapping them against the wall. The impact was brutal, leaving the goblins crushed and lifeless. After dealing with the goblins, he takes a moment to relax, allowing the tension to dissipate from his body. However, an inexplicable unease creeps over him, as if he is being watched. Although his keen senses of hostility and danger fail to detect anything threatening in his surroundings, the presence lingers in the air. Unbeknownst to him, a creature lurks in the shadows, its eyes fixed upon him with an intensity he cannot perceive. And then, in the distance, he spotted a figure emerging from the mist, a dog. But not just any dog. It was Momo, the friendly canine he had come to know and love. Boundless joy filled Kudo's heart as the familiar pup bounded towards him, barking gleefully. Its tongue lashed out, gently caressing Kudo's face in an affectionate canine greeting. The nature of Momo's existence puzzled Kudo. She was a stray dog, a resilient wanderer in the neighborhood for quite some time. Overwhelmed with relief, Kudo offered the famished Momo a portion of his limited food supplies, and tenderly petted her matted fur. Seeing her alive and well, his heart swelled with gratification as a profound bond grew between them. Strange indeed were the ways of this mysterious world. Before Kudo's bewildered eyes, a peculiar notification materialized, a party request from none other than Momo herself. It was then that Kudo, brimming with curiosity and a sense of resignation, accepted the virtual invitation. After all, he had come to accept that this realm operated akin to the rules of a complex video game. With a leap of faith, Momo officially joined his party, sealing their unique connection. Once Momo became a part of Kudo's party, a newfound ability to perceive her name and level bestowed upon him. Astonishingly, Momo stood at level 2, an achievement that puzzled Kudo immensely. She, a seemingly ordinary dog, had somehow managed to level up, defying all expectations. In a moment of realization, Kudo unraveled the enigma. As monsters are defeated, they leave behind small stones, precious fragments just waiting to be discovered. It appeared that Momo, resourceful and determined, had consumed these stones, thus gaining experience and leveling up. Intrigued by this revelation, Kudo decided to put his theory to the test, offering a stone to Momo. Without hesitation, the curious canine devoured the offering, validating Kudo's hypothesis. It was then that another thought crossed Kudo's mind. He recalled the grave encounters with goblins in the past, battles that had resulted in collecting a handful of stones dropped by those vile creatures. Determined to assist his loyal companion, Kudo resolved to gift Momo these coveted items, a boon that might bolster her growth. Yet, it was the stone obtained from the hulking dog he had unintentionally struck down the previous day that lingered in his memory. Urged by a mixture of curiosity and compassion, Kudo reached into his pocket and retrieved the largest stone he possessed. With a flicker of anticipation in her eyes, Momo eagerly consumed them, displaying no ill effects from devouring these peculiar sustenance. Kudo glanced down at his menu, his anticipation growing. True to his expectations, his experience points had increased by 20 as he leveled up. He also gained 10 job points which he planned to allocate towards enhancing his spy level. Excitement surged through him as he pondered the possibilities that awaited him on this new level. With his freshly obtained experience points, Kudo discovered he had unlocked a powerful new skill, Blade Master. As Kudo reveled in his newfound abilities, a mysterious presence observed him, its intentions shrouded in secrecy. However, his attention was momentarily diverted as he began to review the contents of his inventory. To his surprise, he realized that no matter how many items he could withdraw from his storage, he was unable to extract water from the bottles. Furthermore, he discovered that the maximum range for conjuring objects was limited to a mere 5 meters. Driven by an urgency to find a solution, Kudo enlisted the help of Momo, his trusted companion. Together, they descended to the parking lot, hopeful that Kudo's car would offer them a means of escape. Unfortunately, their hopes were dashed as they arrived to find Kudo's car in ruins. Desperation set in, and Kudo rummaged through his inventory, desperately searching for something to salvage the vehicle, but to no avail. With no other option, Kudo made the decision to venture outside to seek assistance from a regular store. In an attempt to ensure his safety, he took Momo along, finding solace in her presence. Little did he know, this seemingly innocuous choice would soon reveal itself to be a grave mistake. As they made their way towards the store, the once bustling streets now painted a scene of desolation and death. Corpses littered the pavement, attracting scavenger birds that feasted upon the remains. Kudo's instincts kicked in when he sensed his enemy detection system activating. An eerie stillness enveloped him, causing him to come to a sudden halt alongside Momo. Kudo's heart raced as he faced the approaching zombie. The thought of using a refrigerator to crush it crossed his mind, but the noise it would create could potentially attract more monsters. With a quick decision, Kudo summoned a dumbbell, gripped it tightly, and swiftly embarked on a daring plan to attack the undead from behind. But just as he leaped into action, ready to strike, the zombie abruptly turned around, baring its rotting teeth, ready to sink them into Kudo's flesh. The sudden movement caught him off guard, leaving him without a moment to react. However, amidst the chaos, he noticed a peculiar shadow forming beneath him, enveloping the zombie in its ominous embrace. It was Momo, revealing an unexpected skill acquired after accidentally consuming the stone from the dog Kudo had tragically run over. The stone, as it turned out, belonged to a shadow dog, imparting Momo with the power to manipulate shadows. Without hesitation, Kudo swiftly dispatched the struggling zombie, gaining valuable experience points in the process. In gratitude, he handed the stone to Momo, realizing that she could devour stones from defeated monsters to acquire their skills. This revelation sparked a newfound understanding in Kudo. While he couldn't devour these transformative stones himself, Momo had the ability to do so, expanding their repertoire of abilities. With this symbiotic partnership forged on the battlefield, Kudo contemplated how their combined skills could greatly enhance their combat prowess. Continuing on their journey, the pair reached a nearby store, seeking essential supplies to aid their survival. Kudo immediately set to work, gathering various items and utilizing his item storage skill to secure their provisions. Meanwhile, Momo, ever grateful for her newfound companionship, grabbed a bag of dog food that could sustain her through these harsh times, and Kudo stored it away as well. Yet, as they prepared to depart in search of a safe haven before nightfall, Kudo's sharp instincts caught sight of something in the distance. Focusing his abilities, he conjured a pair of binoculars, discovering and saw signal emanating from a building not too far off. The signal bore a flicker of hope for potential survivors, but an unsettling sensation washed over Kudo, making him hesitate. Undeterred by his gut feeling, Kudo ultimately decided that aiding whoever was in distress prevailed over his uneasiness. With Momo at his side, they ventured towards the building, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Along the way, they encountered a number of monsters, but their combined skills easily outmatched the feeble assailants. As Kudo triumphed over each encounter, he noticed a peculiar pattern emerging. Every time he leveled up by 3, his job-related skills saw a noticeable increase in power and proficiency. This revelation fascinated Kudo, prompting his mind to race with possibilities as he contemplated the immense potential that lay within their newfound abilities. They had accumulated a substantial amount of experience points, and it was time to level up their skills. Searching through their storage, they stumbled upon a previously acquired, highly acclaimed weapon. Excitement surged within them as they envisioned all the possibilities and plans they had formed after reading a captivating light novel. Approaching an ominous building, they could hear the sounds of a fierce battle from within. Someone was bravely fighting off a horde of monsters. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Kudo activated their camouflage skill, blending seamlessly into the surroundings. After a few failed attempts, they discovered that by holding on to Momo while activating the skill, she too could become camouflaged. Quietly infiltrating the building, they bore witness to a group of men desperately cornered by brutish orcs. The men had valiantly resisted for a considerable duration, but the relentless orcs had eventually shattered their defenses. Towering over humans, the orcs possessed superior strength, clearly putting the men at a severe disadvantage. Among the orcs, Kudo identified one that stood out, a higher-ranking creature that sent shivers down their spine. Contemplating the precarious situation, Kudo debated the pros and cons of intervening. Though confident in their newfound skills, they hesitated, knowing that victory was uncertain and the risk was exceptionally perilous. Thoughts swirled in their mind, considering the potential rewards of helping, such as earning the trust, gratitude, and valuable experience from the group. However, they also weighed the disadvantages, envisioning potential demands from their storage and the constant need to protect and share resources with strangers. Ultimately, they decided against intervening, choosing to prioritize their own life and that of Momo's safety. As they began to retreat, a sudden sense of pressure and a tremor rippled through them. They turned to witness the devastating aftermath of an orc utilizing a destructive skill, causing a sizable portion of the building to collapse upon the group. Grief-stricken and terrified by the unfolding tragedy, Kudo desperately tried to escape with Momo. Yet, the chilling gaze and unsettling smile of the orc haunted his every step, fueling their fear and urging him to flee even faster, but he was too scared to do it. Kudo remained fearful in the presence of the ogre, despite activating his spy skill that rendered him invisible to others. Even though he was well camouflaged, he couldn't shake the feeling that his gaze had met the ogre's, and to make matters worse, the ogre had mocked him. This traumatic moment had a lasting impact on Kudo as his levels of fear resistance, stress resistance, danger sense, and enemy detection increased. He also gained new skills called retreat and defensive instinct. Soaked in sweat and filled with fear, Kudo fled from the scene with Momo. As they ran, he lamented the fact that he had to hide from enemies who were stronger than him. He grew frustrated, realizing that he still wasn't strong enough, and made a promise to himself to become much stronger and more powerful alongside Momo. Eventually, they reached Kudo's apartment. Out of breath, he collapsed onto the floor and grabbed a bottle of water. This had been the most dangerous situation he had ever encountered, and the closest he had come to death. Self-doubt crept into Kudo's mind as he questioned his actions. He was irritated with himself for relying too much on his skills. His continuous victories over monsters had made him complacent, and now the world had dealt him a harsh reality check. He considered his reckless behavior to be incredibly foolish, jeopardizing his own life. Both Kudo and Momo were exhausted, thus deciding it was time to rest. However, Kudo couldn't let go of the fear that they might be attacked while they slept. Determined to ensure their safety, he used his abilities to conjure large objects like furniture and chairs, building a barricade that would, at least in theory, protect them. With that, the first day since the monsters invaded the world came to an end. The next day, Kudo was awakened by Momo, his faithful companion, who lovingly licked his face. It was time to start their day, so after a quick breakfast, Kudo gathered Momo and shared his thoughts with her. They needed to level up if they were to survive in this world, and the only way to do that was by going out to hunt monsters. Kudo understood the importance of caution and safety, so he assured Momo that they would only target low-level monsters, avoiding any high-ranking threats. With determination in his eyes, Kudo explained to Momo that death was not an option for them. They had to rely on their skills to fight against these creatures. Kudo recognized the unique abilities they possessed, as Momo had the power to manipulate shadows while Kudo had a range of diverse skills that complemented each other perfectly. It was a symbiotic relationship that gave them an edge in combat. After conversing with Momo, Kudo took a moment to review his stats. To his surprise, he noticed a significant increase in his skills. Not only that, but he also discovered that he had acquired new skills by meeting certain requirements. Each time he used a skill a certain number of times, he would fulfill the skill's requirements and be able to learn a new one. Excitement welled up inside Kudo when he observed Momo performing peculiar movements with its paws. He eagerly anticipated witnessing a new skill that Momo might have acquired. However, to his dismay, Momo did nothing particularly interesting. In frustration, Kudo yelled at Momo, unable to comprehend what had transpired. Realizing his outburst was unwarranted, Kudo quickly apologized for his behavior. Both Kudo and Momo exited the apartment, contemplating whether the ogre still lurked in the area. In an effort to avoid potential danger, Kudo decided to venture in the opposite direction of the shopping center. He hoped that by doing so, he might stumble upon the elusive ogre. Regardless of the direction they took, their path was littered with numerous corpses strewn across the streets and sidewalks. The sight of so many lifeless bodies left Kudo wondering what the government and the army were doing amidst this chaos. Having been unable to catch up on the news, Kudo remained oblivious to the current state of affairs. It dawned on him that there might be survivors seeking refuge in abandoned houses, yet he couldn't dismiss the possibility that these individuals had already fallen prey to the monsters that hunted humans. Suddenly, they spotted a lone goblin ambling in the distance. With a shared determination, Kudo and Momo decided to attack it. As they engaged in combat, Kudo couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. The goblin's defeat came far too easily, and as a result, Kudo received a meager amount of experience points. It seemed that the goblin's low rank contributed to this unsatisfactory outcome, leaving Kudo longing for a more formidable opponent. After killing another orc, Kudo uses his SP to level up his spy skill. He realizes that high-level professions and secondary professions have been unlocked for him. Now faced with a choice, Kudo struggles to decide which high-level profession to pursue. Finally, he selects the professions he deems most important for his survival: assassin as his high-level profession and hunter as his secondary profession. By choosing these professions, he gains new skills, combining them with the ones he already possessed. Among the new skills are Silent Step, Night Vision, Precise Attack, Erase Presence, Block Inspection, Tracking, Long Range Sight, Agility Increase, and Dexterity Increase. Kudo is particularly curious about the Block Inspection skill, as it suggests the existence of an inspection skill. After selecting his professions, Kudo reviews his stats and realizes that his repertoire has significantly expanded since the previous day. Eager to test his new skills, he decides to experiment with Silent Step. To his amazement, he discovers that all sounds produced by his body, including his clothing, are completely muffled. It's as if there is no sound at all. Intrigued, he then tries out long-range sight, allowing him to see as if he had binoculars on. He also tests tracking, which enables him to sense the presence of any creature within a 10-meter range. Satisfied with his newfound abilities, Kudo sits down to eat with Momo, pondering how they can effectively combine their skills. After their meal, the duo leaves the apartment once again and makes their way to a store. Upon arrival, Kudo senses the presence of a group of goblins, including a high-level orc. Contemplating whether to flee or confront them, Kudo decides to stay and engage in combat, as he doesn't feel an imminent threat. Briefly aware of someone observing him without visible presence, he chooses to ignore it for now. With Momo at his side, Kudo enters the store, activating his tracking skill to determine the exact location of each monster. There are a total of 8 enemies, 1 goblin near the cash register, 2 in the meat section, and 4 more in the production area, alongside the formidable orc. Kudo had never faced 8 enemies all at once before, so this was going to be a tremendous challenge for him. He steeled himself, preparing to enter the fray, but before he could do so, Momo discreetly concealed herself within his shadow. This was a skill she had acquired, allowing her to enter other shadows through Kudo's, effectively hiding herself within them. This newfound ability had significantly amplified the reach and damage of both Kudo's close-range attacks and Momo's presence. Kudo devised a strategy to distract the monsters by tossing a couple of stones, intending to create a diversion. Utilizing his Shadow Cloak skill and Silent Step, he planned to infiltrate the store unnoticed. He hurled the stones with precision, causing one of the goblins near the cash register to investigate the source of the noise. Seizing the opportunity, Kudo successfully slipped inside the store without detection. Once inside, he headed towards the area where the butcher was located, with Momo utilizing her shadow powers to assist him. With Momo's help, Kudo executed a swift and deadly maneuver, immobilizing 2 goblins swiftly and silently. Continuing his mission to eliminate the goblins, Kudo approached the production section. There, he spotted a distracted goblin and seized the opportunity to launch a surprise attack, swiftly ending its life. Only 4 goblins and the colossal orc remained. Suddenly, another group of goblins arrived on the scene, hurling stones at the goblins already inside. Apparently, not all goblins were allies. The massive orc decided to rise and confront the other goblins, emitting a terrifying roar reminiscent of the high-ranking orc that had previously terrified Kudo. However, this roar held no significance. It was merely an act to intimidate the other goblins. Seizing the moment of confusion among the goblins, Kudo proceeded to scavenge various items from the store, swiftly storing them in his inventory. After securing the necessary supplies, Kudo prepared himself to engage in battle with the goblins. Manifesting several objects to create a division among them, he assigned Momo to handle the goblin at the door while he dispatched the rest. With quick precision, Kudo stabbed one of the goblins, swiftly ending its life, and dropped a washing machine onto another, eliminating them both. Once all the goblins lay lifeless, only the enraged high-ranking orc remained, bellowing at the top of his lungs in fury. Initiating the confrontation, Kudo hurled a water balloon filled with homemade Tabasco sauce that he had prepared during his strategy planning with Momo. After launching the balloon, Kudo decided to execute a strategy he had read about in a light novel. As the orc was momentarily blinded by the Tabasco, he swiftly dropped a vending machine on top of it. completely crushing its body and successfully assassinating the high-ranking monster. Meanwhile, Momo had managed to kill the goblin guarding the door. Thanks to defeating the orc, Kudo leveled up to level 7. While celebrating their victory, a mysterious girl stood at a distance, observing them through the scope of a rifle. She was astonished that despite facing numerous monsters, Kudo was able to eliminate them all. Furthermore, she was amazed that Kudo could sense her skill, line of sight, despite her being far away. This girl happened to be a monster hunter herself, and she felt delighted to discover someone else who shared her passion. Kudo was completely exhausted after the intense confrontation he had just faced. Feeling drained, he slumped down, taking a moment to catch his breath. Sensing his despair, Momo, his faithful companion, tried to uplift his spirits by affectionately licking his face. Surprisingly, this simple act worked wonders, as Kudo's energy surged back to him, and he quickly exclaimed that he was feeling much better. Realizing that they needed to move on from their current location, Kudo and Momo decided to leave. As they walked, Kudo reflected on the grueling fight they had just experienced. While it had been challenging, he acknowledged that it provided him with invaluable combat experience. However, he was acutely aware that he still had a long way to go in terms of improving his skills and strategic abilities. Kudo knew he needed to be better prepared for future encounters, especially when facing a stronger group of monsters. With that in mind, Kudo came to the realization that he needed to devise more advanced weapons and tools to aid him in combat. He made up his mind to visit the home center, specifically the drugstore section, where he could gather ingredients to create advantageous potions. However, Kudo knew that his biggest obstacle was himself. He recognized the need to attain complete harmony between his body and mind, as they were not currently operating at full capacity. Taking a moment to regroup, Kudo checked his stats, assessing his growth since the battle. He strategically allocated his SP to enhance his skills as an assassin and hunter, maximizing his potential. Recognizing the significance of the stones left behind by the defeated goblins, Kudo handed them to Momo, trusting his loyal companion to carry them. With their business concluded, Kudo and Momo began their journey back home. As they made their way through the streets, Momo cleverly concealed himself in Kudo's shadow, offering a sense of security. While on their path, Kudo noticed a military helicopter flying perilously close to their location. Wondering if he should follow it, Kudo contemplated seeking help at the shopping mall, the helicopter's destination. However, a surge of fear overcame him as he remembered the colossal high-ranking orc lurking within the mall, causing him great distress at the mere thought. Kudo decided to stay as an observer, so he chose to go to the rooftop of a building to witness how the army would deal with the orcs. On his way to the building, he noticed people who had been hiding rushing out of their houses and heading towards the shopping mall, believing that the army's arrival would be their salvation. Kudo ignored them, continuing on his path. Once on the rooftop, Kudo observed the military forces arriving at the shopping mall. He wondered if the soldiers had levels or skills, as the only remarkable feature he noticed were their weapons, the deadliest in his civilization. The soldiers encountered a couple of orcs and managed to kill them easily thanks to their weapons. Kudo concluded that firearms were indeed the best way to confront the orcs. However, out of nowhere, a fearsome orc appeared, letting out a thunderous roar. Startled, Kudo dropped to the ground, taking shelter next to Momo, who enveloped them both in shadows for protection. After regaining his composure, Kudo stood up to check if the soldiers were still alive. To his relief, they all seemed to be alive and ready to continue fighting. Kudo looked at the orc and realized that it was the same one that had frightened him during their last encounter. The orc destroyed the soldiers' helicopter and stood in front of them, ready to face them. The orc began by launching 2 soldiers against a wall, killing them instantly. The remaining soldiers opened fire, but the bullets seemed to have no effect on the orc. One soldier attempted to attack the orc head-on with a knife, only to have his head severed with a single swift motion. The remaining soldier on the ground also had his head removed. After slaughtering the soldiers, the mighty orc commanded his goblins to kill the humans who had gathered in the vicinity, resulting in a brutal massacre that left numerous corpses in its wake. After witnessing the events unfold, Kudo couldn't help but think that if there was a military team dedicated to fighting monsters, there must be more of them lurking in other parts of the world, perhaps even more powerful than he could have ever imagined. This realization filled him with a mix of awe and trepidation. Feeling disillusioned by the situation, Kudo's hope began to wane. He had always believed that someone, somewhere, would be able to put an end to the monsters. However, seeing that even the military couldn't handle them, he started to lose faith in anyone's ability to combat the threat. Disheartened, Kyudo found himself questioning whether there was any hope left at all. Nevertheless, this setback didn't dampen Kyudo's spirits. Instead, it ignited a newfound determination within him. He resolved to become stronger, to equip himself mentally and physically for whatever lay ahead. With his mind made up, Kyudo decided to head to the home center, which was conveniently located opposite the shopping mall. Leaving the terrace behind, Kyudo and Momo began their journey towards the home center. Little did they know, just as they departed, a mysterious figure emerged from behind a nearby wall. Eerily, this enigmatic entity expressed a desire for Kyudo and Momo to linger a little longer. It was as if they had sensed her presence. Nonetheless, the mysterious figure quickly convinced herself that she didn't need to wait for Kyudo to address her first. If she wanted to strike up a conversation with him, she would need to take the initiative. Upon arriving at the home center, Kyudo was immediately greeted by a scene that caught his attention. Two groups of people were engaged in a heated argument. It became clear that the reason behind this clash was the desire of one group to enter the building while the other group was firmly blocking their way. The group wanting access consisted of 12 individuals, half of whom were middle-aged. On the other hand, the obstacle group consisted of 5 high school students who exuded an air of delinquency both in appearance and behavior. As the two sides continued their heated exchange, Kyudo, a keen observer, noticed other people inside the building. Suddenly, a couple emerged from the entrance, with one of them being called Nishino-san, seemingly the leader of the group. Nishino-san took it upon themselves to address the situation and announced that they couldn't allow the group of students entry into the building. However, there was a glimmer of hope, as Nishino-san offered a solution that involved certain conditions that needed to be met. Kyudo was taken aback by Nishino-san's words as he struggled to comprehend the meaning behind these conditions. Was he implying that they needed to bring him a beautiful woman or something similar? Before Kyudo could reach a conclusion, Nishino-san proceeded with his proposal, asking if anyone among them was willing to slay monsters. The members of the other group were left dumbfounded by this unexpected question. Their intimidation intensified as they noticed the girl standing next to Nishino-san, gripping a weapon in her hand. Nishino-san clarified that in this world, killing monsters resulted in leveling up, acquiring new skills, and even obtaining professions. He explained that they had been risking their lives for the past 2 days, and if they desired assistance, they would have to offer help in return. The people from the other group grew agitated, adamantly asserting that Nishino-san's words made no sense. They argued that real life was not a game and urged him to face reality. Ironically, it seemed they were the ones who failed to grasp the true reality of their situation. The group of teenagers from the other faction begs them for help, but the boys don't seem willing to give in. Kyudo grows weary of watching this spectacle and decides to leave the place. He doesn't believe he can gain anything good from this situation. He chooses to head to a store instead, hoping to escape the tension. Inside the store, he unexpectedly encounters other high school students. He wonders if they are friends of the students he saw earlier, but decides not to engage with them and waits for them to leave. As they exit the store, he notices that they are carrying everything in their hands, implying that none of them have an inventory to store their supplies. Once they are gone, Kyudo has a clear path to enter the store. With thoughts of reaching level 9 in his mind, Kyudo starts taking items from the shelves. He activates a new skill that allows him to grab 10 objects simultaneously within a range of 5 meters. However, this skill has a limitation. It does not let him store living or moving objects. As he exits the store, Kyudo becomes aware that he has accumulated all the materials on one side of the area, and has yet to reach the limit of his storage. For a moment, he questions if he might be a god himself. While walking, the idea of going to the home center crosses his mind again. However, he worries about what the group of boys guarding the area might do. Kyudo approached the home center, a sense of looming danger creeping up on him. Determined to stay one step ahead, he decided to enter through the back entrance. Surprisingly, it seemed like both sides had reached an agreement as there was no sign of the heated argument that was unfolding at the front. Utilizing Momo's shadow manipulation powers, they managed to slip through an open window and stealthily ventured deeper into the building. However, their progress was interrupted when they caught sight of approaching figures. Quickly thinking on their feet, they found a hiding spot to evade detection. Before retrieving the necessary materials from the home center, Kyudo realized that he needed to gather as much information as possible. In one of the rooms, 2 individuals engaged in a heated discussion with Nishino, criticizing her decision to allow more people inside. Nishino defended her actions, explaining that given the dire situation, any help they could find or offer was valuable. Nonetheless, doubts crept into Nishino's mind, echoing the words of her companion, Shinada, the girl who had accompanied her when they confronted the group of individuals who wanted to enter. Nishino remained unconvinced about the reality of the levels, professions, and skills that seemed to govern their world. Despite not being entirely convinced, Nishino still speaks to his fellow comrades about the importance of their skills, considering the rest of them as mere pawns in his game. He also discusses the two individuals they sent out to inspect the area. Kyudo overhears the entire conversation, feeling discomforted by their ruthless and unfeeling behavior. He also worries about their excessive confidence, unsure if they will be able to utilize their skills when monsters appear. As the fourth person enters the room, he is visibly agitated and screaming. He informs everyone that the two people who went to inspect the area have returned and reported that the stores, supermarket, and pharmacy have been almost completely emptied. Panic floods through the group as they contemplate the reason for this occurrence, suspecting a monster may be raiding the stores. Kyudo listens intently, feeling a sense of embarrassment as it becomes evident that he is the one responsible for looting the stores. In room 11, a palpable tension fills the air as everyone worries about the dwindling food supplies. The boy approaches Nishino, informing him that they only have enough rations to last for 3 days if it's just the two of them. However, with the newcomers they allowed in, their supplies will deplete in a single day. Nishino takes charge of the situation, advising his companion to speak with the rest of the group and the other people present. He instructs him to inform them that there isn't much food left, urging them not to engage in any unnecessary activities to conserve their energy. Nishino ponders how it was possible for all their food reserves to be stolen in less than a day. It occurs to him that the thief must possess a high-level storage skill. Continuing their discussion, the entire group concludes that the person who stole the provisions aims to monopolize all the food supplies in the area. Consequently, they deem it futile to negotiate with such an individual. Their decision is unanimous: they must expose the thief's identity and embark on a search to find them. They theorize that if this person's goal is to plunder their belongings, they will most likely target the home center as well. With this in mind, they decide to lay in wait for the culprit. Determined, they leave the room, their resolve firm. Kyudo, having witnessed everything they discussed, now feels guilty as his intentions were not what the entire group thinks, and it has become a misunderstanding. He decides to go to another area of the home center, resigned to do something about the boys since he believes there is nothing else he can do. As he sits at a table, he senses the presence of 4 monsters in a different location from where he is. He decides to join Momo in battling the monsters. Upon arriving at the scene outside the home center, Kyudo manages to see that they are shadow wolves, smaller than the one he accidentally hit with his car. Momo feels slightly intimidated by them, but Kyudo convinces him that they are superior because they are monsters and cannot be tamed. With their confidence restored, Kyudo and Momo set out to devise a strategy to defeat them. First, they hide as well as they can, to prevent the wolves from finding them with their highly developed sense of smell. Kyudo contemplates the idea of leaving the boys to fight the wolves while he ventures into the home center to retrieve the items he is searching for. As Kyudo ponders his next move, the students find themselves facing the wolves. One of them is bitten by a wolf but manages to strike it with a sturdy cane. Nishino hurries over to inspect the wound and realizes it is severe. Without hesitation, he orders the injured student to be taken inside for immediate assistance. The remaining group members stand firm, ready to defend themselves against the ongoing wolf onslaught. Instead of immediately launching an attack, the wolves decide to howl, calling for reinforcements. In the blink of an eye, a horde of goblins, shadow wolves, and even zombies swarm into the area. These wolves not only summon their own kind but also called upon an assortment of monstrous creatures to aid them. Meanwhile, a pack of shadow wolves begins to encircle Kyudo. Despite his attempt to stay hidden, they have managed to track him down. The environment does not favor him at all, as his skills offer no advantage in this particular setting. Realizing the dire situation, Kyudo makes a swift decision to retreat back into the home center in a bid to gain an upper hand against the wolves. Once inside, Kyudo swiftly dispatches the first wolf, causing a washing machine to topple over it. This successful kill propels Kyudo to level 8. With Momo's assistance and employing a few conveniently summoned household appliances, Kyudo manages to vanquish all the wolves, accumulating a substantial amount of experience and additional monster stones for future use. Kyudo's heart raced as he surveyed the scene. There were over 20 monsters surrounding the home center. The gravity of the situation became clear, and he knew it was time to make a decision. Concerned for his own safety, he reluctantly made the difficult choice to leave the other students behind, wishing them luck in their battle against the relentless horde. However, as Kudo turned away, something caught his attention. He noticed that the students and the members of the other group were engaged in a fierce struggle, fighting the monsters with all their might. Nishino, the group's leader, conjured up a bat and joined the fray. Kudo marveled at their determination and bravery. Beside Nishino stood a girl who displayed remarkable skills. With her weapon in hand, she swiftly dispatched several monsters, leaving Kudo in awe. It was clear to him that she possessed an extraordinary ability, perhaps some sort of skill. He speculated that she must have used a technique like Fortify or Berserk, given the sheer strength she displayed. This girl was undoubtedly the secret weapon of the students, a force to be reckoned with. Leaving the chaotic scene behind, Kudo thought that he had finally escaped the immediate danger. However, just when he began to feel a semblance of safety, his senses suddenly intensified. A surge of foreboding swept over him, and a heightened awareness of his surroundings flooded his mind. Out of nowhere, an enormous shadow wolf appeared before him, a creature much larger and more menacing than an ordinary wolf. Its immense presence startled Kudo to his core, instilling a deep and primal fear within him. Kudo found himself in an alley, facing the formidable shadow wolf. The first time Kudo encountered one and defeated it, it had been an accidental victory. Now, unsure of how to handle the situation, Kudo knew that he wouldn't escape without defeating the shadow wolf. Prior to engaging in battle, Kudo used his SP to level up his inventory. Little did Kudo know, the wolf possessed similar skills to those of his companion, Momo. With this realization, Kudo knew he needed to be extremely cautious. Leveraging the upgraded capabilities of his inventory, Kudo summoned an abundance of furniture and appliances, heaving them one by one at the wolf. Nonetheless, the wolf's unmatched speed and agility allowed it to skillfully evade every projectile hurled its way. Momo, attempting to immobilize the wolf with her shadows, worked in tandem with Kudo as he launched a barrage of furniture combos. Just when it seemed they had the wolf cornered, it unveiled a surprising ability, manipulating shadows to halt the plummeting furniture mid-air. Kudo found himself stunned by the wolf's power, for he had dropped hundreds of kilos of furniture upon it only for it to come to an abrupt halt. All the enemies they had faced before had been defeated by their strategies and fighting style. However, this wolf was proving to be the exception. Kudo pondered on how he would attempt to defeat the wolf and compared it to the other wolves he had faced before. He noticed a weakness in the wolf, its low stamina. However, before he could devise a complex strategy to attack it, a group of lesser wolves suddenly appeared in front of him and lunged at him. Kudo couldn't quite comprehend why these wolves were present when they should have been at the home center. Nevertheless, he didn't have time to dwell on it and quickly decided to dispatch these wolves. He dropped some household appliances and furniture on them, easily killing them. The power disparity between the lesser wolves and the formidable wolf he was currently facing was overwhelmingly apparent. Now back facing the wolf, Kudo chose to flee from the scene. As he ran away from the wolf, an idea struck him. He halted in the middle of the street, facing the oncoming wolf, and dropped his old car onto it. The wolf managed to support the weight of the car with its shadow, but Kudo had anticipated this. He proceeded to drop more automobiles on the wolf. As he continued his escape, he gathered more cars, intending to use them as ammunition for his attack. The wolf exhibited resilience, prompting Kudo to keep dropping cars on it. In the midst of the intense battle against the formidable shadow wolf, Kudo and Momo found themselves relying on their unique skills to gain the upper hand. However, little did they know that Momo's shadow skill shared a weakness with that of the wolf itself. This weakness was defined by their inability to utilize their shadows unless their paws were firmly planted on the ground. As the fierce struggle continued, it appeared that the wolf was about to escape Kudo's grasp. Fear gripped them both as they desperately searched for a way to overcome this perilous situation. Sensing an opportunity, Kudo decided to take a daring risk. With a calculated move, he dropped the last remaining car he held onto the wolf, hoping to deliver a fatal blow. The ground shook beneath them as the car crashed into the wolf's massive form. A triumphant cry echoed through the air as the wolf's life force slowly diminished. Kudo's plan had succeeded, and the once dreaded enemy lay defeated before them. The relief engulfing the duo was palpable, knowing that their relentless determination had paid off. The exhilaration of their victory was not the only reward they reaped from their conquest. The immense strength they had gained by vanquishing the formidable shadow wolf pushed Kudo's abilities to new heights. The experience earned in this arduous battle granted him the opportunity to ascend to level 9. The fight against the wolf ended near the home center, where the high school kids were still gathered, shouting excitedly to motivate themselves to survive the monster attack. Amidst the chaos, Kudo had a fleeting feeling that he exchanged glances with Nishino, but he brushed it off. After all, Kudo was currently in camouflage mode, rendering him practically invisible. Nevertheless, a deep sense of respect for Nishino lingered in Kudo's mind. Despite having lower levels and less skill control, Nishino had managed to unite the entire group and lead them against a multitude of dangerous monsters. Exhausted from the day's events, Kudo and Momo finally arrived home. Kudo sank into the comfortable couch and decided to check his stats, curious about his progress since he left earlier. To his surprise, he had managed to level up 3 times. Excitement washed over him as he eagerly reviewed his SP and JP scores. His SP points had increased to a remarkable 53, while his JP points now stood at 30. Despite brushing off the concern, a lingering worry still clung to Kudo's mind. After a hearty morning meal, Kudo couldn't ignore the constant celestial voice that had been announcing things all day long. Curiosity getting the best of him, he decided it was time to explore the menu. With eager anticipation, he navigated through the options and discovered a delightful surprise. He could add a new skill to his repertoire. It was a moment of triumph, as Kudo pondered which skill would best aid him in this unknown realm. But there was more to uncover in this digital realm. Intrigued, Kudo delved deeper into his newly upgraded inventory. To his astonishment, he realized that it had greatly improved. The expanded storage capacity allowed him to hoard more food, alleviating his worries about sustenance for a while. In all of the enhancements, he offered a stone to Momo, searching for it amidst the vast array of items. As he rifled through the inventory, Kudo couldn't help but notice a swift increase in his speed and the progression of his skills. It was a remarkable growth that seemed to happen almost overnight. Coincidentally, he couldn't help but wonder if, at this rate, Momo would soon level up as well. As dusk settled, Kudo decided it was time for both him and Momo to rest. Nightfall marked the end of another eventful day in this mysterious world. When morning arrived once again, the sun's warm rays met Kudo's weary eyes, and he was gently awakened by Momo's affectionate nudges. Running his fingers through Momo's fur, a renewed sense of astonishment washed over Kudo. The little creature had undeniably grown overnight, leaving Kudo in awe. Thoughts raced through his mind, pondering the possible causes of this accelerated growth. Was it truly the Shadow Wolf stones, or was there something more at play in this fantastical realm? Despite the lingering curiosity, Kudo decided to let it pass for now, but the worry didn't leave his head. They leave the apartment and take a stroll through the city, exploring the deserted streets. As they wander, their eyes catch sight of an abandoned construction site. Kudo, with his keen eye, sees it as a treasure trove of potential weapons and supplies. With no monsters in close proximity, they take advantage of the situation and begin collecting everything they can find. One after another, Kudo carefully stores away the various items he discovers. Rusty pipes, discarded planks, and even a couple of hammers find their way into his makeshift arsenal. He feels a sense of excitement and relief knowing that they now have access to an assortment of tools that may aid them in their survival. After securing what they needed, Kudo's attention is drawn to an old treasure chest hidden behind the construction materials. His initial instinct is to regard it with caution, unsure of whether it might be a trap. However, to his surprise, his senses of detecting enemies and danger fail to activate. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind, but curiosity wins him over. Carefully, he approaches the chest, his heart pounding with anticipation. With a gentle touch, he opens it, expecting riches or perhaps a useful item. But instead, to his dismay, a monstrous creature emerges from within, confirming his suspicions. In a split second, Kudo reacts, dropping a hefty object onto the chest and swiftly crushing both the monster and its hiding place. Although he manages to dispatch the threat effortlessly, Kudo can't help but find his lack of sensing danger peculiar. His instincts have reliably guided him through countless challenges, but now they seem to have betrayed him. Doubts fill his mind as he tries to make sense of the situation, wondering if there is something more sinister at play. From the debris caused by the collision of the objects hurled by Kudo, emerges a small creature with a very friendly appearance. It is a red smile. This creature sends Kudo Kazuto an alliance request. Kudo is surprised since he wasn't aware that humans could establish alliances with monsters. He ponders for a moment whether he should accept the request or not, but ultimately decides to reject it, considering that the little red smile would be a burden for him and Momo. After declining the offer, they leave the place. On the other hand, we observe the enigmatic monster hunter girl, who is firing her rifle at a group of orcs standing at a considerable distance. With remarkable ease, she diminishes them one by one, hitting her targets with astonishing precision. She notices that the number of monsters in the area has been decreasing each day, which is not ideal for her since without monsters to kill, her leveling progress will be hindered. Realizing that she must move on, she understands that staying stagnant in this location will prevent her from improving her skills. She assumes that acquiring allies would be a wise choice for survival. As she contemplates the idea of allies, her thoughts drift back to the boy and his dog who were on the terrace a few days ago. She had witnessed the brawl at Center Home but was unable to see its outcome, therefore unsure whether they are still alive or not. She fervently hopes that they are alive, as she longs to catch another glimpse of the dog's face, which had left a lasting impression on her. After selecting her destination on the map, the girl leaves the terrace. Meanwhile, Kudo and Momo find themselves in an apartment. The place appears to have been ravaged by goblins. However, Kudo doesn't seem to mind and decides to start eating with Momo. From his inventory, he pulls out the most delicious dog food he could find, and Momo's eyes light up at the sight of it. Kudo explains that this particular bag of food is very hard to come by, so today must be a special day as they are eating in a special way. After finishing their meal, Kudo lies down on the ground with Momo and expresses gratitude for the food. Despite being in a world surrounded by monsters, Kudo feels deeply grateful to be able to enjoy a delicious meal. Moments after finishing, Kudo offers some stones to Momo, encouraging her to eat them. As Momo munches away, she suddenly detects a stone she dislikes and swiftly removes it from Kudo's hand before tossing it aside. Perplexed by Momo's reaction, Kudo fails to comprehend her reasoning. However, before he can fully make sense of the situation, he notices that the mischievous little red smile had been trailing them ever since they first crossed paths. The creature now approaches with Momo's discarded stone in its possession. Kudo remained convinced that partnering with this monster was a terrible idea, but Momo took offense to his skepticism. She fiercely sank her teeth into his hand, causing him to wince in pain. As Kudo looked at her, bewildered, Momo started to move in circles, seemingly excited about something. Unable to hold his curiosity, Kudo asked her what was going on and whether she wanted to ally herself with the red smile. In response, Momo's face lit up with joy, further confusing Kudo. He couldn't understand why Momo was so enthusiastic about partnering with the creature. Was it because he had returned the stone to her? Perhaps Momo had a plan of making use of him to gather the stones that monsters left behind when they died. From one moment to another, the red smile transforms into a food tray. While in this transformed state, Kudo is unable to detect its presence. The red smile returns to its normal state, leaving Kudo astonished by its ability to mimic things. Kudo also notices a unique connection between Momo and the smile, which is why when the smile sent another alliance request, Kudo had no choice but to accept it, all to please Momo. He also considers that their transformation skills, along with Kudo's own abilities, could make for an excellent combination. And so, eventually, the red smile becomes a member of Kudo's party. After accepting Smile's request, Kudo's Beast Tamer skill evolved into Monster Tamer. With this transformation, Kudo felt a surge of power and immediately decided to give his newfound ability a name, Akka. Now equipped with Akka, they left the place and embarked on their journey. Akka, showcasing its true potential, transformed into a jacket for Kudo. It appeared that Akka had the ability to transform into anything it consumed. But for the time being, it could only mimic objects of its own size. Unfortunately, Akka was unable to transform into living beings. However, Akka proved to be an invaluable defensive asset for Kudo. It became a shield that enhanced Kudo's defensive capabilities to a great extent. With Akka's protective abilities, Kudo felt a newfound sense of security during their endeavors. Akka's transformation into a defensive barrier further solidified its importance in their quest. On the street, Kudo and Akka come across a group of monsters. Curious to test his new skills with Akka, Kudo decides to confront them. The monsters prove to be no match for their combined strength, and they easily defeat them. The intense battle earns Kudo a significant amount of experience points, causing him to level up to level 11. As they stand victorious over the defeated monsters, Kudo retrieves the stones they left behind and hands them to Momo and Akka. Intrigued by their properties, Kudo encourages them to consume the stones. With great anticipation, they both devour their respective stones. Suddenly, Kudo notices a strange change in Momo's behavior. A wave of unease washes over him as he observes Momo's body undergoing unexpected modifications. It becomes apparent that Momo's powers have undergone a significant transformation. A notification prompt materializes, displaying Momo's current level, now level 10. Momo has evolved, marking him as a level 1 assassin. Kudo carefully inspects Momo, checking to see if she has suffered any harm. To his relief, the canine appears unchanged from before. Kyudo's excitement stems from the possibility that Momo may have evolved into a shadow wolf, similar to the ones they have encountered in previous battles. However, Momo retains her adorable and gentle appearance, as she always has. Kyudo couldn't help but dwell on the idea that Momo had evolved into a vicious killing machine. This belief led him to think that his companion was now developing the same fighting style as himself. Wanting to put Momo's skills to the test, Kyudo managed to acquire 3 goblins and a hobgoblin for Momo to demonstrate his abilities. Without wasting any time, Momo quickly immobilized all 4 enemies, effortlessly taking down the goblins. Kyudo saved the hobgoblin for himself, intending to deal the finishing blow and claim the experience points. As the final battle commenced, Kyudo noticed the immense growth in power and skills that Momo had achieved. It was undeniable that Momo had become a force to be reckoned with. Comparing the recent fight to their previous encounters, Kyudo was astounded by the significant increase in both power and skills that Momo had obtained. Despite the considerable increase in power that both Momo and Kyudo have achieved, Kyudo still believes himself capable of matching the strength of other monsters, such as the orc that still instills a hint of fear in him. Meanwhile, a group of high school students find themselves under attack by a colossal orc. These youngsters ventured out in search of supplies and food, but unfortunately crossed paths with this merciless creature whose sole purpose seems to be murdering humans. As panic ensues, one of the students decides to flee, abandoning their group and leaving them facing certain death. As the mighty and fearsome orc wandered, lost in his thoughts about the meaning of his life, he realized that no matter where he went, he would always be stronger than others. There would never be anyone who could stand up to him. They were all mere worms, offering no challenge. Unable to find any enjoyment, he continued his journey, trudging through the trail of corpses he had just left behind, contemplating the need for a great battle that would test his limits. It was the only way to determine if his existence held any purpose. Filled with anticipation, the orc's excitement surged when he spotted the approaching military forces. Yet, his enthusiasm quickly waned as they failed to inflict even a scratch upon him. Disappointed, he resolved to embark on a personal quest, a search to find an individual who possessed enough strength to quench his thirst for blood. Elsewhere, Kyudo was hidden in a disguised store, closely observing the unfolding situation before his eyes. Several high school students had arrived at the store, clearly intending to acquire necessary supplies for their survival, such as food and other essential resources. While deliberating on which items to take, a heated discussion broke out amidst the group. The dispute arose from the fact that some of the kids were already eating, not too concerned about bringing additional provisions to the shelter. However, there was one particular young man who showed deep concerns regarding the food security at the shelter and made efforts to find more food. Perhaps motivated by scarcity or the responsibility to take care of others, this boy stood out among the group. Kyudo, from his privileged hiding spot, remained a silent witness to the situation. His restless mind had grasped the tension and the intertwined perspectives. However, he chose to stay on the sidelines and not intervene despite his ability to influence the course of events. Out of nowhere, 2 inferior shadow wolves emerge, slowly approaching the high school kids. Sensing danger, one of the boys urges the rest to flee from the scene. However, the others dismiss his suggestion, assuring him that they can easily defeat the wolves since they are only 2 in number. There is a consensus among them that they possess enough strength to overcome this threat. Despite their confidence, Uno, the boy who initially proposed fleeing, persistently points out that even though the wolves are currently limited in number, they could call for reinforcements at any moment, just as it had happened in the home center incident. Uno's friends fail to give much credit to his insightful remark, dismissing it as unnecessary worry. Driven by their overconfidence, they remain convinced that they will be able to eliminate the wolves before any additional support arrives. The wolves had reached the spot where the young ones stood. As the battle ensued, Uno, the boy who had opposed confronting the wolves, made a fateful decision to flee, leaving his companions to face the peril alone. However, the remaining youths managed to withstand the ferocious attack of the wolves, albeit struggling to land a successful blow against their adversaries. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the area, piercing the air and bringing one of the wolves down. It was the enigmatic girl who had been searching for Kyudo and Momo. No one understands what is happening, not even Kyudo. Suddenly, Kyudo receives an email. As he opens the email, he unlocks the mail skill. Confused by the email, as he has no idea why he received it or who could be behind it, Kyudo decides to hide in a nearby apartment before opening it. Once inside the apartment, he opens the email. The sender of the email is named Ikanos Natsu, and Kyudo has no clue who this person might be. The subject line reads, "Nice to meet you." As he starts reading the message, Kudo realizes that the sender is actually the same sniper who shot at the wolves. The message unfolds, revealing how Ikenos Natsu has been observing Kudo from a distance and had planned to send this message earlier. However, when they witnessed the monsters attacking the boys, they decided to take action and save their lives. The second part of the message consists of a request to join Kudo's party. The sender explains that she saw him fighting against the goblins at the shopping mall the day before and was fascinated by him and his dog. She asks him to consider her request and to let her know his answer as soon as possible. Kudo carefully considers the possibility of including this person in his party but is unsure if it's a good idea. After some thought, he realizes that she seems to be a kind person because of the nice comments she made about Momo. He also takes into account that if she has witnessed his previous battles, she likely knows about his inventory and the rest of his skills. It would be dangerous to let her go too easily. Kudo realizes that he needs time to decide whether he will allow her to join his party or not. To communicate his thoughts, he unlocks his mail skill, allowing him to reply to the girl behind the emails. When he finally responds, he informs her that he will consider her request but will not make any hasty decisions at the moment. Ikenos Natsu, after sending numerous messages, receives Kudo's response. She replies appreciatively, expressing that she understands his position and is delighted to have the opportunity to get to meet him. It has been an hour since Kudo replied to Ikenos Natsu. Kudo finds himself on the brink of insanity as the mysterious girl has sent him over 40 messages in less than an hour. The notification sound of a new email is becoming incredibly tiresome for Kudo, and he wishes to no longer hear it. He has no idea what kind of person Ikenos Natsu is, and although he has a hunch that she might be a good person, it's also quite evident that she is far from being ordinary. Kudo starts to question what Ikenos Natsu might be like in person. Where did she acquire her rifle? Obtaining firearms in Japan is no easy feat, so he is intrigued by how she managed to obtain one. But what intrigues him the most is her level of skill. Taking down a wolf with a single shot indicates she is highly proficient. As time passes, Kudo becomes more convinced that including Ikenos Natsu in his team would be beneficial. Having long-range support would be of tremendous help to him, so he decides to continue exchanging messages with the girl. In another location, Uno, the boy who ran away and left his friends behind, arrives at the meeting point with the rest of his group. He informs them that the others haven't arrived yet because they encountered some shadow wolves. Despite knowing the truth and feeling remorseful, Uno doesn't want to admit that he ran away and abandoned his companions. Suddenly, a scream pierces the air. The voice belongs to a boy shouting Nishino-san's name. It is Shibata, the member of the group who encountered the mighty orc and had to flee. Shibata appears to be explaining to Nishino what happened, leaving Nishino completely stunned by the revelation. Uno stands there, grappling with mixed emotions. He knows he should have stayed and faced the danger with his friends, but his fear got the better of him. The guilt weighs heavily on his shoulders, yet he cannot bring himself to confess his cowardice. He watches as the consequences of his actions unfold before his eyes. Shibata's voice trembles as he narrates his encounter with the formidable orc. He vividly describes its towering presence, its fiery eyes, and its ferocious roar that sent shivers down his spine. Shibata explains how he had no choice but to flee, leaving Nishino alone to face the imminent danger. Nishino's expression morphs from confusion to disbelief and finally settles into a blank state, unable to fully process the information he just received. Kudo found himself walking outside the city alongside Momo and Aka. The trio had ventured into the outskirts, seeking a change of scenery and perhaps a little excitement. As they strolled along, their eyes caught sight of several smiles gathered near the riverbank. One particular smile, a vibrant red one, seemed to be heading towards the others with purpose and determination. Intrigued by the unfolding scene, Kudo and his companions paused to observe. With well-timed precision, the red smile engulfed one of its fellow smiles, devouring it completely. The sight left Kudo awestruck, as he had never witnessed Aka's ability to consume other smiles before. The sheer ferocity and talent displayed by Aka was beyond anything Kudo had anticipated. After consuming the hapless smile, the red smile split into two distinct entities. Kudo couldn't help but be amazed by the display of prowess and control exhibited by Aka in using their skill. Aka had unlocked a new level of power, exemplifying their growth as a smile. Recognizing the achievement, Kudo showered Aka with praise and admiration, astonished by their rapid development. In the midst of this awe-inspiring moment, Momo's empathy kicked in, prompting them to lend a helping hand to Smile Rojo. Drawing upon their inherent shadow abilities, Momo conjured shadows from their surroundings, guiding them to the river. In an unexpected moment, an orc becomes aware of Kudo's presence and prepares to attack him. Kudo is surprised that an orc was able to locate them, as orcs have exceptional tracking skills. As the orc approaches, it is ensnared by Momo's shadow manipulation. Just as Kudo is about to drop tons of furniture and appliances on the orc, it manages to break free from the shadows and throws a knife towards Kudo. With no time to react, Kudo can only await the impact of the knife. Right before it hits him, Akka appears and takes the hit, saving his life. Kudo keeps the knife, preparing to counterattack, but his sense of danger and enemies is altered drastically within seconds. This is because a pack of shadow wolves suddenly appears in front of him. On the other hand, we observe how Ikeno's Natsu uses moments of boredom to think about Kudo. It's not just Kudo that occupies Natsu's thoughts. Momo also crosses his mind, which is why he sends so many messages to Kudo.